The sky turned an angry red, a foreboding hue that signaled the arrival of an unstoppable force. It was as if the heavens themselves were ablaze, reflecting the chaos below. Smoke blotted out the sun, casting an eerie twilight over the city. The once bright and bustling streets of Los Angeles were now shrouded in darkness, a stark contrast to the usual sunny disposition of the city. Los Angeles, the city of angels, was under siege. The skyline, typically a symbol of hope and opportunity, was now marred by plumes of smoke and the ominous glow of distant flames. Wildfires raged across the region, fueled by drought and driven by relentless winds. The dry conditions had turned the hills into a tinderbox, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. The winds, merciless and unyielding, fanned the flames, spreading destruction far and wide. This was not the first time fire had visited the hills of Los Angeles. The city had a long history of battling wildfires, each one leaving its mark on the landscape and the people. Yet despite the familiarity, the threat never seemed to diminish. But this time felt different. This time felt apocalyptic. The scale of the destruction was unprecedented and the sense of dread was palpable. It was as if the very soul of the city was being tested by the inferno. Flames devoured acres of land, leaving behind a blackened scar. Homes turned to ash, their memories and possessions lost to the fire. The once vibrant neighborhoods were now ghost towns, silent witnesses to the devastation. The air, thick with smoke, stung the eyes and choked the lungs. Breathing became a struggle and the acrid smell of burning vegetation and structures permeated everything. The city was suffocating under the weight of the smoke. Fear gripped the city as the flames advanced, a relentless enemy. Residents scrambled to evacuate, their faces etched with worry and uncertainty. The roads were clogged with cars, each one carrying people desperate to escape the encroaching inferno. The sense of urgency was overwhelming as everyone knew that time was running out. Firefighters, the brave souls on the front lines, battled tirelessly against the flames. Their efforts were heroic, but the fire was relentless. Helicopters dropped water from above, a temporary reprieve in the face of an overwhelming adversary. The fight was far from over, and the outcome uncertain. Amidst the chaos, the spirit of community shone through. Shelters were set up for evacuees, and volunteers worked tirelessly to provide aid and comfort. In the face of such adversity, the people of Los Angeles came together, united by their shared struggle and determination to rebuild. As the flames began to subside, the focus shifted to recovery. The road ahead was long and arduous, but hope remained. The city had faced fire before and emerged stronger. This time would be no different. Los Angeles, the city of angels, would rise from the ashes, resilient and unbroken. California had been locked in a drought's grip for years. The once lush and vibrant landscapes had turned into barren, desolate expanses. Rivers and lakes that once teemed with life had shrunk or disappeared entirely, leaving behind cracked earth and dry riverbeds. The drought had not only affected the natural beauty of the state but also its agriculture, economy, and the daily lives of its residents. The land, parched and brittle, was primed for disaster. The soil, devoid of moisture, had become a tinderbox, ready to ignite at the slightest spark. Farmers watched helplessly as their crops withered and died, and communities faced water restrictions and shortages. The drought had created a perfect storm of conditions that made the land incredibly vulnerable to wildfires. The Santa Ana winds arrived with a vengeance. These seasonal winds, known for their hot and dry nature, swept through Southern California with relentless force. They howled through the canyons and valleys, picking up speed and intensity as they went. The winds were so strong that they could knock down trees and power lines, creating even more hazards in an already dangerous situation. These hot, dry winds, sweeping down from the desert, transformed the canyons into wind tunnels. The narrow passages funneled the winds, increasing their speed and power. The canyons, which were already dry and brittle from the drought, became even more susceptible to fire. The winds whipped through the vegetation, drying it out even further and creating the perfect conditions for a wildfire to spread rapidly. Embers, carried by the wind, became flying torches. These tiny, glowing fragments of burning material were lifted into the air and carried for miles. They landed on rooftops, in dry fields, and in forests, igniting new fires wherever they touched down. The embers were like seeds of destruction, spreading the wildfire far beyond its original boundaries. They leaped across highways, igniting new fires miles away. The flames didn't respect man-made barriers. They jumped over roads and highways, spreading the destruction to new areas. The fire's ability to cross these barriers made it incredibly difficult to contain and control. Firefighters had to constantly adapt to the changing conditions, moving from one hot spot to another in a desperate attempt to stay ahead of the flames. The speed of the fire's spread was terrifying. Fueled by the dry vegetation and driven by the relentless winds, the wildfire moved with a speed and ferocity that was almost unimaginable. It consumed everything in its path, leaving behind a charred and blackened landscape. The fire moved so quickly that residents often had little time to evacuate, and many lost their homes and possessions in the blink of an eye. Firefighters, stretched thin, fought bravely against an almost unstoppable force. These men and women worked tirelessly, often for days on end, to try and contain the blaze. They faced extreme heat, dangerous conditions, and the constant threat of being overtaken by the flames. Despite their best efforts, the sheer scale and intensity of the wildfire made it a nearly impossible task.
The conditions were just perfect for a disaster. Years of drought had left the vegetation tinder dry, creating a vast expanse of highly flammable material. The combination of dry conditions, strong winds, and high temperatures created a perfect storm for wildfires. It was a disaster waiting to happen, and when the spark finally came, the results were catastrophic. Years of drought had left the vegetation tinder dry, turning fields of grass and forests into potential fuel for the fire. The lack of moisture in the soil and plants meant that once a fire started, it could spread rapidly and with devastating effect. The dry grass and underbrush acted like kindling, feeding the flames and helping the fire to grow and spread. And those Santa Ana winds acted like a bellows, fanning the flames with incredible intensity. The winds not only helped the fire to spread, but also made it more intense and difficult to control. The combination of dry conditions and strong winds created a perfect storm for wildfires, and the results were devastating. The flames roared through the landscape, consuming everything in their path and leaving behind a trail of destruction.
The Palisades fire, sparked by a suspected arsonist, tore through the hills above Santa Monica. Homes, many belonging to celebrities and millionaires, were reduced to rubble. The Eaton fire, fueled by dry brush and driven by the Santa Ana winds, swept through the Angeles National Forest. Thousands of acres burned. Wildlife perished as their habitats went up in flames. The air quality in Los Angeles plummeted, the smoke a visible reminder of the devastation. Even the glamour of Hollywood couldn't escape the reach of the flames. The iconic Hollywood sign, a symbol of dreams and stardom, stood against a backdrop of raging wildfires. The hills, usually a picturesque sight, were now engulfed in a sea of orange and red, a stark contrast to the usual serene landscape. The fire spared no one. Entire neighborhoods were consumed by the relentless flames, leaving behind charred remnants of what once were homes. The inferno showed no mercy, devouring everything in its path from modest houses to grand estates. Mansions in Bel Air and Brentwood were evacuated. These luxurious homes, often seen as fortresses of wealth and security, were not immune to the disaster. Residents fled, taking with them only what they could carry, as the fire threatened to reduce their opulent abodes to ashes. Celebrities posted on social media, expressing their gratitude to the firefighters and their heartbreak at the devastation. Their messages of support and sorrow flooded the internet, bringing global attention to the crisis. Stars who once graced red carpets now used their platforms to raise awareness and call for aid. The Getty Museum, home to priceless art, activated its fire protection system. This cultural institution, housing irreplaceable works of art, took every precaution to safeguard its treasures. The sight of smoke billowing near the museum was a chilling reminder of how close the flames had come to erasing centuries of history. The world watched, holding its breath, as fire threatened to consume a cultural treasure. News channels broadcasted live updates, capturing the anxiety and fear etched on the faces of those watching. The potential loss of such significant landmarks resonated deeply, highlighting the fire's far-reaching impact. The fires in Los Angeles had become a global spectacle, a stark reminder of the power of nature. International news outlets covered the story extensively, and people from all corners of the world sent messages of support. The wildfires were not just a local disaster, but a global event, underscoring the urgent need for collective action against such natural calamities. The governor of California declared a state of emergency.
"This is a crisis of unprecedented proportions," he announced, his face grim. We are throwing everything we have at this fire, but we need everyone to do their part.
Local officials echoed his sentiments, urging residents to heed evacuation orders and to prepare for the worst. The message was clear: Los Angeles was in a fight for its life. Help poured in from neighboring states, showing incredible solidarity. Firefighters from Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon arrived with their trucks and equipment, ready to join the battle against the raging fires. The international community responded as well, offering their expertise and resources. Canada sent air tankers to help douse the flames from above, providing crucial aerial support. Mexico offered manpower and resources, standing in solidarity with their neighbors. The outpouring of support was a testament to the human spirit in the face of tragedy, showcasing unity and resilience. Climate change, once a distant threat, had become a terrifying reality. The fires in Los Angeles were a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the consequences of a warming planet. Experts pointed to the role of climate change in exacerbating the drought and creating the perfect conditions for these mega-fires.
The future looked uncertain. The fires served as a stark reminder that the fight against climate change was a fight for survival.
Despite the devastation, the resilient spirit of Los Angeles refused to be broken. Communities rallied together, offering support to those who had lost everything. Volunteers distributed essential food and water to evacuees. Fundraisers collected millions of dollars in much-needed aid. From the ashes of tragedy, new hope emerged. The human spirit, tested by fire, had proven to be resilient. Los Angeles would rebuild, it would heal, it would rise again, stronger than ever before.